What's up, everybody, and welcome to another edition of AGR's Pop Culture Reviews. And you know, one of the sweetest feelings in the world is when you come home and you got a nice little package waiting for you, and it turns out to be something that everybody freaking wants to get their hands on. This is arguably one of the most sought-after products that has ever been in a very long time. It's also pretty interesting because this is the byproduct of 10 years of research and development when it comes to the smartphones, especially when it comes to Apple. And it's interesting to see how these smartphones have evolved. Now, this might not be the giant leap that Apple was expecting this year, but it is an important step. So having said all that, this phone really doesn't need any introduction. This is the iPhone X. Now, if there's one thing I can say about this device is how incredibly difficult it is to get your hands on. And according to all the news feeds and news outlets, this thing sold out in about 10 minutes, according to the Apple website. You should have called this thing the Apple Scarce, because most people are going to be waiting until December to get their hands on this. And I can absolutely understand why it sold out so quickly. Guys, this is an absolutely stunning device. Now, this particular model is the silver with the 256GB option, and I have to say it is really elegant looking. I especially love the border around it. It's in a high polished silver and it just looks so elegant. I also like the glass back. I'm glad they did that. But you guys are going to need a case for this phone no matter what. And I also have to say it has some heft to it. Finally, Apple really caught up with its competitors and had an OLED screen, and this thing is gorgeous, guys, and this video doesn't really do it justice. The second innovation, of course, is that they finally removed the home button, and this was long overdue. I love how clean this looks. But with the removal of the home button comes a whole new set of issues, and basically you're gonna have to retrain yourself in order to use this phone properly. Now, the biggest issue about this phone too is the removal of additional biometrics, so they're relying completely and almost exclusively on facial recognition or facial ID. And I do have to admit, the setup is very easy and it's very reliable. Now, as a direct result of the removal of the home button, you are gonna have to learn a whole new set of hand gestures in order to access very basic functions on this phone. For example, if you want to see your notifications or if you want to close an app or something, that's a whole different set of gestures that you have to learn. So basically, going into an application means that if you want to close it and open it, you just swipe up from the bottom so that you can close the application and basically get into other things. Now, the notification center or the home center, what you'll do is you'll swipe from the right side of the phone, and basically that's how you access your toggle keys, the volume controls, the airplane mode, Wi-Fi, that kind of thing. Similarly, if you want to get a quick glance of all your notifications, well, you're going to swipe from the top left in order to view all notifications. And it's pretty intuitive. After a while, I didn't see it as something that I would have to overcome. It actually became like second nature, and I really wondered why Apple hadn't done this before. Now, multitasking and closing applications is admittedly a little bit weird at first. What you'll have to do is you'll have to actually pull up from the bottom of the phone in the middle of the screen, and then it'll open up all your apps. So once you open up all your apps, you long press on one of the applications, and then that will give you the minus sign, and basically then you'll be able to close apps randomly, however you want to do them. But that's basically how you do multitasking and how you close applications. I'm kind of sad that they don't have a close all app option on the iPhone. They really should. And of course, the newest feature in terms of text messaging, and really kind of a fun thing, but I don't think I'll use that much, is Emojis. Now, this really showcases the power of that sensor camera at the front where you see the notch. I mean, it really tracks your face and facial expressions really well here. I have to say, it's pretty impressive in terms of its technology. Every movement that I made, it was able to track, and it was able to put in this little emoji, which was pretty cool. Now, speaking of that notch, guys, it is a bit of an eyesore, I have to admit. And you really notice it when you see applications that are completely white like this. I mean, it's just a glaring thing, and you notice that it's there. But after a while, I will admit that I stopped noticing the notch. It wasn't such a big deal, and it's one of those things that eventually you'll get used to. But at first, it does look a little bit distracting. Now again, because of that gorgeous OLED screen, consuming media on this phone is going to be a freaking beautiful thing. It looks amazing, but I'm not sure if it was just this iPhone or maybe the programs or apps have not been optimized yet, but I still had those borders and that really weird aspect ratio. In other words, I couldn't fill up the full screen with some video that I was trying to look at. However, to be fair, today is the launch date, so I'm not sure if it's just that the applications haven't been optimized yet, or if it was just something that developers need to work on at this point. Now, easily one of the most impressive things about this version of the iPhone is definitely those two cameras, and they both have optimal stabilization, which is fantastic. And because of it, you can do some really interesting things with your photo, especially when you start messing around with the settings. Actually, you take some really awesome photos with this phone. The photos on the iPhone X are rich and they're colorful without being so oversaturated. It's almost like if the camera knows what light is around and it uses it to take these photos. I also have to say how impressive they were in terms of overall detail. Taking video on this phone is also a complete pleasure. Not only are the images crisp and they look fantastic, but also in terms of the resolution and how fast the frame rate, it always looks really sharp and it looks amazing. Ultimately, guys, the iPhone X is really kind of a luxury item. Given its price point, especially if you want the 256GB model, I mean, that's going to run you at least maybe $1,200, so there's also that consideration. But it's really up to you to decide whether or not you're willing to pay that amount of money for a smartphone. Now, don't get me wrong, this is a great phone, and it really seduces you with a brand new design, the OLED screen, the different functionalities, and most importantly, that it's kind of virtually bezel-less. But it doesn't mean that you have to run out and go and buy it. If you have an iPhone 8, I think you're doing pretty good. But if you have $1,200 to spend, especially on the high-end model, then I do recommend this phone. Now, before I go, I gotta send a real special shout out to the folks over at Apple and T-Mobile for sending this wonderful piece over for review. Alright everybody, so that's my official review on Apple's newest flagship phone, the iPhone X. As always, I thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next AGR's Pop Culture Reviews. Sorry guys, I know that you're waiting for this phone, and some of you have to wait until December, but guys, think about it this way. You're gonna get your phone soon enough, and it's gonna be a nice Christmas present. Just hang in there.